You know, I don't mind filler episodes, but considering the previous episodes we just came off of, and the episodes that will come after this, oh man. Okay, so this is episode 14, really small problem. So I don't okay. I know I've built this up as I hate or I loathe this episode. I don't fully despise it. I mean, if it popped up on TV and I couldn't watch anything else, I'd sit through it, but I wouldn't. The main thing I hate about this, the main thing I don't like about this episode is how it executes the main idea it has. And that idea being the group being shrunk down and having to. Okay, let's just go through it. So it starts with. Basically the main plot of this episode is Luce, King, and Ida. They go to a carnival that comes into town, and King wants to spend the day at the carnival with Luce, but Will and Gus show up, and of course, King being small, he kind of gets left behind a bit. He's the fourth wheel technically. It's the term is third wheel, but there's four of them, so the fourth wheel. But he makes a deal and with Tibbles the ringmaster, who so the pig from episode 6, he comes back and he's like, oh yeah, no, I'm like the group is like, oh, yeah, sorry about destroying your stand and that. And Tibbles like, oh no, it opened my eyes. I'm totally enlightened now. And I'm like, yeah, big shock. He's not. So yeah, he gives King King is pretty much just he's just out of it because he's being left behind with Willow and Gus because of Willow and Gus, and so Tibbles, disguised as a fortune teller, who gives him this spray that Tibbles explains will just make something disappear and will reappear when Tibbles claps his cheeks. And so King goes and he doesn't purposely do it. At least that's kind of what I was dreading. I thought he was literally that's just what I felt like he was gonna do at that point. And yeah, that's kind of the main reason why I don't like this episode, is because it kind of showed the side of King that I'm not 100% certain is intentional or not, and that's just King going to that depth to get some time with Luce. I mean, I get it, he's jealous, but I don't know, I just don't like when it goes that low. Yeah, I guess I have my bar when it comes to that. Not to mention, it's shrinking. They shrink them, and so, and maybe if Tibbles caught them off guard and did it, I can see that happening too with Luce, Willow, Gus, and King. That would have been cool, and they would have spent more time as shrunk in the episode because most of the episode, because it starts off with Willow and Gus shrunk down, and they think it's King because so the way that it happens is Luce goes to grab something to eat while Willow, Gus, and King stay behind, and King, he's contemplating the idea of spraying Gus and Willow, and then Gus and King was he wants these friendship. They say bracelets, but honestly they look like necklaces. And so Willow and Gus, Gus hugs King gets frustrated, and then the spray bottle that Tibbles gave him slipped out from his little nap or fanny pack, and gets on Willow and Gus and they disappear, and so King at first freaks out, but then Luce comes back, and so she's like, oh wow, they looks like they were really eager to get on those rides then, and so King's like, yeah, yes, I guess they'll be gone for a bit. Yeah, so I'm sorry, it's just this episode. I think for me, what I don't really, it's King. The thing with King and just the predictability of this episode really, like, the second Tibbles pops up on screen, I was like, okay, he's gonna get his comeuppance by the end of this episode. And then once he shows the spray and then sprays the thing and it disappears, again, because the episode's called Really Small Problems, I immediately knew what it was. It was gonna shrink whatever it was. And so there was that, and just, yeah, so, you know, okay, well, there are some good things in this episode. Like, everything with Ida I thought was pretty funny, because, you know, it's Ida, so, so Ida, what Ida does at the carnival is she sets up her own shop with, she calls it Human Horrors, and so, like, she basically took stuff from Luce's room to show off, and she's like, one of the things was Luce had some fishnet leggings, I believe, or wait, Luce said her socks, and so Ida's like, this is human skin, because they shed their skin, there's that bit, and then, a guard shows up, I mean, a carnival guard, not a coven guard, a carnival guard shows up, and then Ida grabs her staff, but Albert isn't there because he's playing Whack the Giraffe, and Ida's like, Albert, I would be mad at you right now if you weren't being adorable right now. And so Ida gets caught, and so she's forced to work at the carnival, or else she'll be turned to the coven. And that really doesn't go. It's just her selling crab apples, caramel apples with crab pinchers. Yeah. She does have she does have one good line in this, and that it comes later. So, you know, Willow and Gus, while Willow and Gus are shrunk, you know, they do the classic tropes, you know, like, they have to run from things that for normal size people are very small, but for big, they literally fly around on a fly. There's also this cool thing with the mirror, with the Hall of Mirrors. So, like, they lure Luce into the Hall of Mirrors so that she can see them on the ground. And so they have this pretty cool shot where Luce is walking through, and, like, you see all the different reflections that are there, and it's creative, and I like that. I thought it was fun. And then, so basically, yeah, big shock. They tell Luce what happened, and so King kind of has to confess. Well, King, of course, he thought they had to disappear, and so Luce gets mad at him, and, you know, they get into they kind of like, Luce wants to get the bottle, and so they fight, and then the spray gets on them, and so all of a sudden they shrink as well. So then Tibble shows up, obviously, because, you know, he's like, all right, I got them exactly where I wanted them. So he captures them, and he puts them in this hamster, like, cage, not hamster cage, whatever those glass things are, and he puts them in it, and then he has Griffin, he has a lion, and he has unicorns, savage unicorns, at least they're not like the, remember those unicorns from Onward, the Tom Holland Chris Pratt movie from last year? Like, those, they're kind of like those, but more aggressive and more like bulls, I guess. And so, you know, they have to fight, or just at least survive in it. And so, at least they don't have a moment in this where, like, King and Luce and Willow and Gus are, like, they're hiding, and, like, at least in this, King like looks at Willow and Gus, and, like, then at Luce, and he sees all of them nearly getting attacked by these animals, and he's like, oh, I really messed up. At least they didn't do, like, we need to figure, like, they're gonna kill us, and like Willow and Gus are like, yeah, I wonder why, and Luce is just like, yeah, King, what were you thinking, or something like that. At least they didn't do that. I thought they did that the first time, but seeing it again, little bit there. So King was able to save the kids because what he did was he ran out to the other side of the cage and was able to avoid the beast's attacks, and so one beast lands here, another one lands here, another one lands there, is enough for King to get out, and then he throws the friendship necklaces that he won at Tibbles, and it hits Tibbles in the cheek, and Tibbles is like, oh, and he hits his cheek, and so that's how it reverses the shrinking spell. Yeah. Oh yeah, back to Ida, like I said, she was selling crab apples and stuff, and so she's like, the crowd's getting bored. She's serving the crowd, watching the show, and so someone's like, not one of those dumb kids have gotten eaten. And Ida's like, dumb kids? She turns and sees that it's Luce and the gang, and she's like, wait a minute, those are my dumb kids. It's a funny line. I mean, again, it's like, I think that's the one well, I mean, who am I kidding? Everyone's really funny. This episode isn't like, it's not an episode it's not an episode I fully hate. It's just the fact that I know exactly where it's gonna go with it. And if they like spun it in a different way, it's just again, if Tibbles was the one responsible for the shrinking the whole way through and not like tricking King into doing it, that would have probably been better. If King, I get King being jealous, but I just feel like we've seen that. We saw him get jealous. We saw him in episode 4 when Luce wanted to learn magic. He wanted to teach her demons. Then in another episode with the book, in episode 11 with the book, like he wanted to do his own thing, but he couldn't compromise with Luce. This one, he's a third wheel or fourth wheel, and then so he wants to get more attention with Luce. But again, it's like I feel like these are kind of like attention hogging things with the book and the So again, it's like just seeing it again to me felt. Yeah, it felt meh, like, I don't know. So yeah, they get out, and then Tibbles gets his comeuppance, and because not only did he spray the kids, he also sprayed the animals that they were battling against, and so obviously the animals all grow back up to normal size, and at first they're attacking the fans because they have the crab apples, but then Ida dumps the crab apples on Tibbles, and of course the animals go after Tibbles, so there's that funny bit. Again, it's not... Again, it's like there's funny moments in this episode, but to me, it's not an episode that I feel like was the strongest in this series, and considering this is episode 14 of 19 in the first season, I feel like you're just too deep into the season to get an episode like this a pass. Like episode 2, I gave it a pass because, again, like you can drop in and not really miss much, but still it's the second episode. You're still establishing stuff. Episode 8, the body swap episode, it's they have their fun with it, at least. Like they had their bet. They made a bet. It wasn't an accidental swap like usually what happens in other shows and stuff. And they do make fun of those tropes. This episode, they don't really make fun of the shrinking tropes. They do it, and they're like, well, this happened. Like they have their moments with it with Willow and Gus. Like they're flying around on a fly. They land in a candy machine. But again, it's like, I mean, even Willow makes like this joke about hair, like everything up close is hairy when you're up close, everything is hairy or something like that. But yeah, there's also there's a funny bit with Hootie at the beginning and the end. Like, so Hootie thought he was gonna go to the carnival with the group, but they left before he could get ready, and so he then decides to talk with the fly. We only see the beginning and the ending of it. Like he's and it's just him the whole time. But by the end, the fly is like still like it's hovering in place, like actually listening to Hootie. But then Hootie accidentally swallows it, so there's that. But yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so I mean, at least it was I mean, we got to see Tibbles again. At least I thought that was kind of funny. Like, I hope he shows up in more episodes. I feel like he will be in more episodes. He's definitely that kind of like sub villain that would be a fun thing to continuously go back to. But yeah, I'm sorry. For anyone who likes this episode, I respect you. I can see why people would like this episode. Just like the lesson, this everything about the joke. The jokes are the jokes. Like I said, there's good jokes in this episode. I mean, all of these episodes have really good jokes. Like some of them definitely get me pausing the episode and just me having to contain my laughter. They're funny, but again, it's just I've seen it. I've seen this type of I've seen the tropes that have been in this episode. I knew exactly where it was gonna go with the whole episode, and just the fact that King pretty much has done this multiple times. It's just been different ways. So yeah. All right. Well, I think I crapped on this episode enough. Again, for those who like this episode, sorry, that's just my opinion. That's the thing about these. That's the thing about these videos is like it's my personal opinion about each of these episodes, and I really and like I said at the beginning of this series, I love this show. I really, really, really connected. This show really connected with me because one, it's got magic. I mean, there's so many great things about the show: the characters, the jokes, the story, the world, the relationships, the magic, the creativity of the magic, the just the connections to Gravity Falls, and just the overall message of truly be yourself. Like that one definitely feels it. I had days where I felt like I was kind of in Luce's shoes, where I feel like I'm alone and all I have is I what I have passion for. And so just seeing a character like Luce go in every day just with their upbeat attitude and just going through everything is just it's just stuff I really like to see. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm excited for season 2. This episode is I wouldn't say like I mean mm, yeah. I mean, yeah. If this was an earlier episode, maybe I'd give it some slack. But again, it's episode 14 of 19 of a season. It's just how it is.